Captain Ada Voss had never dreamed of space as a child. Born in the mining colony of Helion IV, a rugged outpost clinging to the edge of humanity's reach, her early years were marked by the hum of drills and the suffocating dust of Helion's surface. Her family, like most on the outpost, had spent their lives working the mines, their futures tied to the back-breaking labor that extracted rare elements prized across the galaxy. But Ada wasn't content with a life underground. Driven by a sense of curiosity and a burning ambition, she defied her family's wishes and applied to the Earth Federation Academy. Despite the odds, she was accepted, leaving behind her home and the life she had always known. At the Academy, she rose quickly through the ranks, her knack for strategy and engineering catching the attention of her superiors. And it was here that she first encountered the Empire's iron grip on the galaxy. The Galactic Empire, governed by the oppressive Council of Five, held sway over countless planets and colonies, dictating trade, security, and even the scientific advancements permitted within its borders. Earth was technically independent, but the Council's influence reached even the Sol system. Earth's government walked a thin line between independence and appeasement, reluctant to provoke the Empire's wrath but determined to maintain autonomy. As Ada climbed the ranks, she became increasingly frustrated with the Federation's caution and dependence on outdated technology. Earth's military vessels were a patchwork of parts from different eras, upgraded only when absolutely necessary. In contrast, the Empire's ships were sleek, powerful, and equipped with advanced weaponry that outmatched anything Earth could field. Ada saw this disparity not as a cause for despair but as an opportunity, a chance to innovate, to test the limits of human ingenuity. When she was given command of the prototype ship Resolute, Ada found herself on the cutting edge of Earth's technological experiments. The Resolute was small by Imperial standards, its design unconventional. Earth's best engineers had poured their talents into the project, outfitting the ship with experimental energy shields, high-velocity plasma cannons, and a propulsion system that could rival even the Empire's most advanced ship. The ship was Ada's dream realized, the culmination of her ambition and years of dedication. But there was a problem. The Council had eyes everywhere, and whispers of Earth's prototype had reached Imperial ears. The Council dismissed the project as a desperate, laughable attempt by Earth to keep up, convinced that the Resolute posed no real threat. The Empire's scorn only fueled Ada's determination. She was resolved to show the galaxy what Earth was truly capable of, to prove that humanity's resourcefulness could rival the Empire's wealth and power. One evening, as she reviewed the Resolute schematics in her quarters, Ada received a secure transmission from an old friend, Captain Elias Cade. He was stationed at a nearby outpost, monitoring the Empire's fleet movement. "Ada, I've got some news," Cade said, his voice laced with concern. "The Empire has taken an interest in your prototype. They're sending a recon ship to assess Earth's defenses." Ada smirked. "Assess, huh? More like intimidate." Cade's face was tense. "This is different. They're calling it a routine patrol, but they're bringing heavy artillery. The Council wants to send a message." A fire lit in Ada's eyes. "Let them come. They think we're harmless, that we'll bow and scrape like everyone else. But the Resolute isn't just a prototype, it's a warning." Cade raised an eyebrow. "And what are you planning to do with it?" She smiled, her expression steely. "Whatever it takes." Over the next several days, Ada prepared her crew and tested every system on the Resolute, pushing the ship to its limit. She knew the Empire wouldn't expect resistance, especially not from a single ship. But she also knew that this was more than just a test of Earth's capabilities. It was a test of her own. The political landscape was tense, with many in Earth's government urging caution. They feared provoking the Empire's wrath, terrified that a single misstep could lead to war. But Ada believed that the time for caution was over. Humanity had spent too long living under the Empire's shadow, bending to its demands, accepting its judgment. The Resolute represented a new path, a break from the past, and Ada was determined to chart it. As the day of the Empire's arrival approached, Ada gathered her crew in the command deck, the hum of the ship's engines filling the air. "We're about to make history," she began, her voice firm and clear. "The Empire thinks we're a minor inconvenience, a backwater planet that poses no threat. They think they can control us with fear, that we'll submit to their demands without question." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the faces of her crew, each one brimming with resolve. "But they're wrong. We are more than just a colony. We are innovators, explorers, fighters. And today, we're going to show them what that means." The crew responded with a round of cheers, their spirits lifted by Ada's words. She knew that each of them shared her vision, her determination. They weren't just soldiers. They were pioneers, standing on the brink of a new era for humanity. The political structure of the galaxy was complex and fraught with tension. The Galactic Council, composed of 5 powerful leaders from the Empire's core planets, ruled with an iron fist. Each council member represented a faction within the Empire, factions that competed for influence and resources while maintaining a united front against any form of rebellion.
For centuries, the Council had enforced strict technological regulations, controlling the development of weaponry, space travel, and communications across the galaxy. Independent planets like Earth were forbidden from creating advanced military technology, under threat of severe punishment. Yet the Empire's reach extended beyond technology. It sought to control even the ideals and aspirations of those within its borders. On the outer fringes of the galaxy, colonies struggled under the weight of imperial sanctions, their resources siphoned to fuel the Empire's expansion. Entire planets had been stripped of their wealth, their people forced into servitude. The Empire's arrogance was boundless, its belief in its superiority absolute. But even among the Council members, there were whispers of dissent, doubts about the Empire's ability to maintain control over such vast, diverse territories. Ada's thoughts often drifted to these colonies, to the countless lives shaped by the Empire's unyielding rule. She knew that her fight wasn't just for Earth. It was for everyone who had ever dreamed of freedom, who had ever dared to hope for a future beyond the Empire's reach. And as she looked out at the stars from the Resolute's bridge, she felt a sense of purpose that went beyond any personal ambition. The day of the Empire's patrol arrived, and the Resolute was ready. Ada stood at the bridge, her gaze fixed on the scanner as the Empire's recon ship approached. It was a sleek, imposing vessel, its dark hull a stark contrast to the stars around it. Her calm officer looked up, a trace of anxiety in his eyes. "Captain, we're receiving a hail from the Empire's ship." Ada nodded. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was cold and dismissive. "This is Captain Kor of the Imperial Recon Fleet. Earth Federation vessel, you are in violation of galactic law by operating unauthorized technology. Power down and prepare to be boarded." Ada's lips curled into a smirk. "This is Captain Ada Voss of the Earth Federation vessel Resolute. Your threats don't intimidate us, Captain Kor. We're here to defend our freedom, not surrender it." A moment of silence followed, then Kor's voice returned, his tone laced with condescension. "You misunderstand, Captain Voss. This is not a request." Ada's gaze hardened. "Then you're about to learn a valuable lesson, Captain. Humanity doesn't back down." With a nod to her weapons officer, Ada signaled the first strike. The Resolute's plasma cannons roared to life, sending bolts of energy hurtling toward the Imperial ship. The recon vessel's shields flared as they absorbed the impact, but Ada could see the surprise in their maneuvers. They hadn't expected resistance, not from Earth, and certainly not from a prototype ship. But as the battle began, Ada knew that this was only the beginning. She was challenging not just an Imperial captain, but an entire empire. And as the clash unfolded, the Resolute would become a symbol, a beacon of defiance that would echo across the galaxy. Captain Ada Voss leaned back in her command chair, studying the tactical display as the Resolute drifted through the aftermath of their first engagement with the Empire's recon vessel. They had managed to force Captain Kor's ship into retreat, but Ada knew it wouldn't be long before the Empire sent a more substantial force to assess and contain this perceived threat. The Resolute's crew moved quickly to repair minor damage sustained in the skirmish, and Ada took this brief lull to review the status of her new ship and her crew. She was proud of how they had handled the fight, but she could see the tension and uncertainty written across their faces. This was new territory for them, defying the Empire directly, facing down a foe that most of humanity still viewed with a mixture of fear and awe. One crew member in particular, Lieutenant Jonah Riker, had stood out during the battle. As the chief engineer, he had adapted quickly when a glitch had overloaded the ship's experimental energy shields, rerouting power manually to stabilize the system mid-fight. His quick thinking had bought them precious time, allowing Ada to pull back and counter Kor's offensive. Riker had been a recent transfer, assigned to the Resolute just weeks before their first launch. Tall, with a calm demeanor and a mind always working a few steps ahead, Riker seemed an unlikely engineer for a prototype ship meant to defy the Empire. But Ada recognized the fire behind his steady gaze. He was here because he believed in this mission, and she respected his quiet confidence. As Ada moved to the engineering bay to check on the status of repairs, she found Riker tinkering with a plasma conduit, a faint smile on his lips as he fine-tuned the settings. "Nice work out there, Lieutenant," she said, leaning against the frame of the bay. Riker looked up, nodding. "Thanks, Captain. Just doing my part. These new systems have quirks, nothing like the older models. But with a bit more adjustment, we'll have the ship running smoother than ever." Ada crossed her arms, watching him work. "I don't think I've properly thanked you for keeping us alive back there. Kor would have had a field day if our shields had given out." Riker shrugged. "I knew the risks when I signed up. Just wanted to make sure we came out of that first round looking strong." They shared a moment of quiet understanding. In Riker, Ada saw a reflection of her own conviction, a willingness to fight for something bigger than themselves, even if it meant putting their lives on the line. As the Resolute prepared for its next mission, a message came through the ship's encrypted channel. It was from Elias Cade, Ada's old academy friend, who had been keeping her informed of the Empire's fleet movements. His face appeared on the screen, looking graver than usual. "Ada," he began, his voice hushed. "We just picked up intel that the Empire's dispatched a full squadron to your sector. They're calling it a strategic sweep, but I think we both know what that means." Ada felt a knot form in her stomach. "They're retaliating?" Cade nodded. "They're determined to make an example out of anyone who defies them. It's not just one ship, Ada. This is a full detachment, led by Commander Lynera Voss." Ada stiffened at the name. Commander Voss was infamous throughout the Empire for her ruthless efficiency and cunning tactics. She had earned a reputation as the Council's enforcer, sent to quell uprisings, to silence dissenters. If the Empire had deployed her, they were treating Earth's defiance as a serious threat. But it was more than that. Commander Lynera Voss wasn't just a name to Ada. She was her aunt, a figure who had loomed over her childhood like a distant shadow. As a girl, Ada had idolized her aunt's strength and brilliance, but as she grew older, she had come to see the darkness that lurked behind that strength, a loyalty to the Empire that was as cold as it was unyielding. "You know what she's capable of," Cade said, his tone warning. "If she gets to you." "I know," Ada replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She straightened, meeting his gaze with renewed resolve. "But we're not backing down." As the Resolute and its crew made their way toward the uncharted sector where Commander Voss's fleet had last been spotted, Ada called her senior officers to the briefing room. The atmosphere was tense, the crew acutely aware of the danger they were facing. "We've been tasked with something few ships in the Federation would dare," she began, her voice steady. "We're going up against a squadron led by Commander Voss. She's known for eliminating threats with ruthless precision, so we need to be prepared for anything." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but Ada continued, her gaze sweeping over them. "This isn't just about defending Earth. It's about showing the Empire that we are not afraid. That humanity has the strength to stand on its own." Lieutenant Riker, seated near the front, raised a hand. "Captain, do we have any intel on Commander Voss's tactics? Anything that might give us an edge?" Ada took a breath, her memories of her aunt swirling to the surface. "She's meticulous, highly strategic. She doesn't charge headlong into battle. She probes her enemy's weaknesses, wears them down. If we're going to survive this, we'll need to use every advantage the ship has. We have one shot to catch her off guard, and we have to make it count. The hours leading up to the encounter were filled with preparations. Riker worked tirelessly alongside his engineering team, fine-tuning the Resolute's weapon systems, recalibrating the shields, and ensuring that their prototype engines were in peak condition. Ada coordinated with the crew, running through contingency plans and drills, instilling in them the confidence they would need to face the Empire's finest. When the first blips appeared on the scanner, a hush fell over the bridge. Ada watched as the formation of Imperial ships came into view, led by a sleek, ominous vessel that could only belong to her aunt. Ada steeled herself, taking a deep breath. Battle stations. The Resolute advanced, moving with a grace that belied its power. Ada could see the faint outline of her aunt's ship, its dark hull gleaming against the stars. She knew her aunt would be watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. With a nod to Riker, she initiated their plan. The Resolute's engines flared as it accelerated, a blur of motion as they closed the distance between them and the Empire's squadron. Ada ordered a series of rapid maneuvers, using the ship's agility to evade the initial wave of Imperial fire. But as she anticipated, her aunt was already adapting, redirecting her forces to cut off the Resolute's escape routes, boxing them in. Ada felt the pressure mounting, her heart pounding as she assessed their dwindling options. Just when it seemed they were trapped, Riker activated a new cloaking system they had managed to piece together from salvaged technology. The Resolute shimmered, disappearing from view for a brief, critical moment. It was a risky move. The cloak was experimental, prone to shorting out. But it bought them the few seconds they needed to reposition, to launch a surprise counterattack that caught the Imperial forces off guard. The battle that followed was fierce, a relentless back and forth as Ada and her crew fought with every ounce of skill and determination. Her aunt's ship bore down on them, each move calculated, each maneuver precise. Yet Ada refused to yield. Her mind raced, searching for any weakness, any vulnerability in her aunt's formation. And then, in a moment of clarity, she saw it, a pattern in the way her aunt was directing the other ships, a vulnerability she could exploit. Riker, reroute power to the forward cannons. Target her engines. The Resolute's weapons blazed, a concentrated assault that struck the Imperial flagship with devastating force. Ada watched as her aunt's ship faltered, her own fleet thrown into disarray. In that instant, she realized that they had won the first round. As the surviving Imperial ships retreated, the bridge of the Resolute erupted in cheers. They had done the unthinkable, repelled an Imperial squadron, defied the Empire's enforcer. But Ada's gaze remained fixed on the tactical display, her mind already racing ahead. This was only the beginning. She had won a small victory, but she knew her aunt, knew that the Empire would not take this defeat lightly. Riker approached her, his expression a mix of pride and relief. "Captain, we did it. They'll be talking about this one for years." Ada allowed herself a small smile. "We've given them something to remember. But this is just the start." As she looked out at the stars, a sense of purpose filled her. The Empire had mocked Earth, dismissed their defiance as a nuisance. But now they knew the truth. Humanity was ready to fight back. Section 3 Outline. The Empire's retaliation and reinforcements. The Empire sends a larger fleet, bolstered by technologically advanced ships and elite commanders. Ada and her allies face intense battles, testing their endurance and tactics. Alliances formed under pressure. Ada reluctantly accepts help from other human colonies and independent factions. Tension arises from their different backgrounds, with clashes over strategy and differing priorities, showing the diversity of human defiance against the Empire. Betrayal and the shocking twist. One of Ada's allies turns out to be a double agent, feeding information to the Empire. This betrayal forces Ada to confront her fear of isolation and failure, pushing her to find a way to secure trust and unite her crew. Climactic battle and near defeat. The betrayal leads to a near-catastrophic confrontation where the Resolute and its allies are surrounded. Ada must use her deepest reserves of strategic thinking to survive, narrowly escaping thanks to an ingenious but risky plan that turns the tables. Section 3 excerpt. Captain Ada Voss gripped the edges of her command chair as the Resolute trembled under another barrage from the Empire's cruiser Ravager. This wasn't just a skirmish. This was an all-out assault, unlike any she'd faced before. Imperial ships surrounded them, their weapons relentless, closing in with disciplined precision. Sweat dripped from her brow as she issued orders to her crew, her mind racing with possible maneuvers and contingencies. "Divert all power to the forward shields," she ordered, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "We need to punch through their formation. If we can breach their ranks, we'll have a chance." Lieutenant Jonah Riker's voice crackled over the comm from engineering. "I'll give you everything I can, Captain, but we're running dangerously low on energy reserves. This constant pounding is eating away at our systems." Ada's jaw clenched. They were barely holding their own, and with each passing moment, the odds grew slimmer. The Ravager was a state-of-the-art Imperial warship, one of the Empire's newest models with impenetrable defenses. Its commander, an arrogant but cunning officer named Torrin Voss, had made it his mission to eradicate the insolent rebels that dared to resist the Empire. But Ada knew something Torrin did not. She had allies. "Signal Commander Thalen and the Orion Free Brigade," she instructed, her mind racing. "Tell them to initiate the diversion protocol." As her communications officer relayed the message, Ada watched the tactical display. The Orion Free Brigade, a fiercely independent faction known for its guerrilla tactics, was about to strike from the far side of the Imperial formation. If they could create enough of a distraction, the Resolute might just have a chance to regroup. Within moments, the display lit up as Thalen's forces launched their assault. Small, agile ships darted in and out of the Imperial lines, harassing the larger vessels and drawing fire away from the Resolute. It was the opening they needed. "Full power to engines," Ada commanded. "Let's move." The Resolute surged forward, slipping through the weakened part of the Imperial line. For a brief, glorious moment, Ada felt a surge of triumph until a sudden warning blared across her console. "Captains?" Riker's voice was strained, tinged with urgency. "There's a power surge in the aft section. Something's wrong. I think we've been sabotaged." Ada's heart lurched. Sabotaged? How? Before he could answer, the lights on the bridge flickered, and several systems went offline. She had barely begun to process the implications when her screen flashed with an incoming transmission. It was Commander Torrin Voss, a smug grin on his face. "Did you think we were so easily fooled, Captain?" His voice dripped with contempt. "We've been tracking your every move, thanks to a friend of yours." As the realization dawned, Ada's gaze snapped to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Ezra Hart, a figure she had come to trust, a confidant who had supported her mission from the beginning. But now, standing across from her with a cold, unreadable expression, she saw the truth. "You," she whispered, betrayal lancing through her heart. Hart's face betrayed no remorse. "It was always about survival, Captain. The Empire offered protection in exchange for information. It was a choice between futile resistance or pragmatic loyalty." Ada's fists clenched, her mind reeling. Hart's betrayal explained so much: the Empire's uncanny ability to anticipate her tactics, the mysterious malfunctions, the growing sense that something was wrong. But there was no time for anger, no room for despair. She had a mission to complete. "Get him off my bridge," she ordered coldly, her gaze never wavering. Two security officers quickly escorted Hart away, his face blank as he was removed from the bridge. Torrin's voice broke the silence, mocking. "You've lost, Captain. Even your own people can see the futility of this fight." Ada stared at the image of her Imperial counterpart, her expression hardening. "You think betrayal is victory, Torrin? I'll show you the strength of those who fight for freedom, not fear." With a nod to her weapons officer, she prepared to fire on the Ravager, knowing it was a risky move but unwilling to let the Empire's treachery go unanswered. But as they unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts, Torrin's forces countered, surrounding the Resolute with overwhelming firepower. The battle became a brutal slugfest, each blow chipping away at the Resolute's defenses. Ada coordinated with Thalen, who continued to harass the Imperial ships, but she knew they were on borrowed time. Her thoughts raced as she analyzed their options, searching for a way to turn the tide. Then, in a flash of inspiration, Ada realized the solution lay in their experimental propulsion system. They had a hyperdrive with an untested maneuver that could create a momentary surge of energy, a technique meant for emergencies, a maneuver so risky that it had been deemed unsafe. "Riker," she called, her voice steady. "Prepare the hyperdrive for a pulse maneuver." There was a pause, then Riker's voice came back, wary but determined. "Captain, that move could tear us apart." She nodded, resolute. "I know, but if it works, it'll push the enemy back long enough for Thalen's forces to break through." "Do it." Within seconds, the bridge was a hive of activity as Riker and his team rerouted power and adjusted the drive settings. Ada felt the hum of the hyperdrive building, a low vibration that pulsed through the ship, filling the air with a charge of anticipation. As the energy reached its peak, Ada braced herself. "Activate the pulse." The Resolute shuddered as the pulse discharged, a burst of energy propelling the ship forward and creating a shockwave that rippled outwards. Imperial ships staggered, their formations disrupted as the force threw them off balance. "Now," Ada shouted, seizing the opportunity. "All weapons, fire at will." They unleashed a devastating barrage, catching the Empire's fleet off guard. In the confusion, Thalen's brigade broke through, joining the assault with renewed ferocity. The tide was turning. But even as they pushed the Empire back, Ada's gaze drifted to the empty space where Lieutenant Hart had once stood. His betrayal had wounded her deeply, a reminder of the stakes and the sacrifices of this fight. She couldn't afford to dwell on it, not now, but the wound would remain, a scar in her resolve. As the battle raged, the Resolute carved a path through the enemy lines, its resilience and firepower pushing them ever closer to victory. Torrens' forces began to falter, their ships scattering as they realized the tide had turned. With one final strike, the Resolute and its allies forced the Empire's fleet into retreat, their ships limping back across the stars, leaving Ada and her crew victorious but exhausted. Reflection and recovery. As the last of the Imperial ships disappeared from sight, the bridge erupted in cheers. They had survived and they had won. But as Ada looked around at her crew, she knew the cost had been high. Trust had been shattered, wounds opened that would take time to heal. Riker approached her, his expression weary but relieved. "Captain, we did it." She nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Yes, we did." Yet as she looked out into the vast expanse of space, her mind turned to the battles yet to come. This victory was only a reprieve, a brief moment of triumph in a war that was far from over. The Empire would regroup, and when they returned, they would be stronger, more ruthless. But for now, they had proven that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, a truth that the Empire would not soon forget. And as Ada steeled herself for the challenges ahead, she knew that, despite the betrayal, the sacrifices, and the pain, she was ready to face whatever the galaxy threw her way. Outline for Section 4. Preparation for the final confrontation. After barely surviving the last battle and dealing with the betrayal, Ada and her crew discover that the Empire is sending its flagship and an elite fleet to crush them decisively. They rally their allies, knowing this is a final stand. The climax, battle with the Empire's flagship. The climactic showdown is brutal and intense. Ada faces Torren Voss, her aunt and the Empire's enforcer, whose flagship outclasses Resolute in nearly every way. Ada must make difficult tactical choices and push her ship beyond its limits. Self-realization and emotional closure. As she battles, Ada reflects on her journey, her losses, and the sacrifices her crew has made. She realizes that her fight goes beyond Earth. It's a symbol of resistance against oppression. Her leadership is tested to its fullest. Resolution and future implications. After a near-impossible victory, the Empire is forced to retreat, shocked by Earth's resilience. Ada and her crew are celebrated as heroes, But she knows that this fight is just the beginning of a larger war for humanity's freedom. She's ready to lead her people in what lies ahead. Section 4 excerpt. Captain Ada Voss sat in the dim light of her quarters, her hands clasped tightly as she studied the latest transmission from her contact, Commander Elias Cade. Her heart pounded as she read the message, the weight of the upcoming battle settling heavily on her shoulders. The Empire was preparing to deploy their flagship, Sovereign, under the command of none other than Torrin Voss. She took a deep breath, the name alone bringing back memories she'd tried to bury. Torrin had been a legend within her family, a figure of authority and power, someone Ada had looked up to as a child. But now, her aunt had become the face of everything Ada was fighting against. The door to her quarters slid open, and Lieutenant Jonah Riker stepped inside, his face filled with determination. "Captain, the crew's ready. They know what's coming, and they're willing to fight to the end." Ada nodded, her voice steady. "Then let's give them something worth fighting for." The bridge of the Resolute was quiet as Ada took her place, her crew waiting for her orders with an air of grim anticipation. The vastness of space stretched before them, silent and serene, as they awaited the arrival of the Empire's fleet. But Ada knew that within moments, this silence would be shattered. "Status report," she called, her voice strong and unwavering. Riker responded, his gaze never leaving the console. "Weapon systems at full capacity, shields are holding, and the auxiliary engines are prepped. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Ada glanced at the tactical display, watching as the Empire's fleet began to emerge from hyperspace. They moved with a cold precision, a testament to Torrin's iron grip over her forces. And there, at the center of the formation, loomed the Sovereign, a monstrous vessel bristling with weaponry, its hull gleaming under the distant starlight. "This is it," she murmured to herself, her fingers tightening around the armrest. "All hands, brace for impact." The first salvo hit them with a force that shook the entire ship, the shields flaring as they absorbed the initial blow. Ada could see the determination in her crew's eyes, each of them standing firm, ready to fight until the last breath. As the battle unfolded, the Resolute maneuvered with a grace that belied its size, weaving through the Imperial formation, its plasma cannons firing in controlled bursts. But for every ship they disabled, another took its place, the Empire's numbers seeming endless. Ada's tactical mind raced, formulating new maneuvers, exploiting weaknesses in the enemy's formation. Yet no matter how many tactical adjustments she made, Torrin anticipated her every move, blocking her path, trapping her within a tightening net. Suddenly, a piercing alarm filled the bridge, and Riker's voice came over the comm, tense but controlled. "Captain, shields are down to 20%. We can't take much more of this." Ada's mind raced, searching for a solution, a way to turn the tide. She knew that the Sovereign was the key. If they could somehow disable or damage Torrin's flagship, it would throw the Empire's forces into disarray. "Riker, redirect all remaining power to the forward cannons. I want every ounce of energy focused on the Sovereign's engines," she ordered, her voice unyielding. Riker hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Understood, Captain. But this could leave us vulnerable if the strike doesn't succeed." Ada's gaze hardened. "It's a risk we have to take." The Resolute surged forward, its cannons blazing as they unleashed a concentrated volley aimed directly at the Sovereign. For a brief, shining moment, the plan worked. The Sovereign's shields flickered, its engines stuttering under the assault. But Torrin was ready. Her voice crackled over the comms, cold and mocking. "Did you really think you could defeat me, Ada? This rebellion ends here." In that moment, Ada felt the weight of every life that had been lost, every sacrifice made to bring them to this point. She looked around at her crew, their faces filled with determination and trust. She couldn't let them down, not now. "Prepare for emergency evasive maneuvers," she ordered, her voice fierce. "We're not done yet." As the Sovereign bore down on them, Ada activated the experimental propulsion system, the ship lurching as it executed a dangerous, high-speed maneuver that took them out of the line of fire. The move bought them precious seconds, and Ada used them to reposition, firing another volley at the Sovereign's vulnerable underbelly. The impact was devastating. The Sovereign's hull buckled, its power systems faltering. Tauren's fleet wavered, thrown into chaos as their leader struggled to regain control. Ada seized the opportunity, rallying her allies. All ships, focus fire on the Sovereign. This is our chance. Take her down. The combined forces of the Resolute and their allies launched a final, coordinated assault, their weapons tearing into the Sovereign's defenses. Tauren's ship shuddered under the barrage, its once mighty hull crumbling as explosions rocked its surface. Finally, with a last, defiant glare, Tauren's voice came over the comms one last time. You may have won this battle, Ada. But this is far from over. The screen went dark as the Sovereign erupted in a brilliant flash, its remains scattering across the stars. The aftermath. As the dust settled and the last of the Empire's forces retreated, Ada allowed herself a moment of quiet triumph. They had done the impossible, defeated the Empire's flagship, defied the might of Tauren Voss herself. But as she looked around at her crew, the weight of the battle's toll settled over her. They had lost friends, allies. She could see the exhaustion etched into every face, the silent grief for those who would not return. Riker approached her, his expression a mixture of pride and sorrow. Captain, we did it. But what now? Ada took a deep breath, her gaze drifting to the stars. Now we rebuild. We honor those who sacrificed everything. And we prepare for the fight that's yet to come. As she turned to address her crew, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had proven that humanity was more than capable of standing against the Empire, of forging its own destiny. But she knew this victory was only the beginning. Today, we have shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of, she said, her voice strong and steady. But the Empire will not stop here. We have taken a stand, and we must be ready to defend it. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crew, their faces filled with a fierce determination. They had tasted victory, but they knew the journey was far from over. As the Resolute drifted through the wreckage of the battle, Ada felt a quiet, powerful resolve settle within her. This was her fight, her destiny, and she would see it through to the end. And as they set course for home, she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had only just begun to witness the true strength of humanity.